The year is 1950. The place? Farnborough, England. An experienced pilot observed a 50-foot diameter disc UFO over the Royal Aircraft Establishment at close range in good weather conditions. On August 7, 1950, at about 11:27 hours, the witness, Lieutenant Stan Hubbards, of the British Air Force, observed an object flying over Farnborough, RAE. The witness stated,
"The events began on the morning of the 14th of August 1950. A lovely Hampshire summer day. Warm, dry, and clear. I heard a strange distant humming sound from the direction of Basingstoke. The noise grew more distinct and more intense, and I clearly remember pausing and turning in mid-stride to see what it could possibly be. To say that I was astonished is a profound understatement. Coming directly towards the airfield was an object entirely unlike anything I had ever seen before. Edge on. It appeared to be something like a discus we used to hurl on sports day at school, and as it came closer I could see that it was indeed very similar in shape. Initially, it seemed that its angular altitude and attitude, above the horizon, were enough to indicate that it was well airborne, but its lack of identifying features made it difficult to classify or easily estimate either its size or distance away. It was coming straight towards me and was holding a straight course. But it was rocking laterally, gently from side to side, about 20 degrees or so, while steadily maintaining its heading. The sound emanating from this strange object increased markedly as it got closer, to a heavy, dominant humming with an associated subdued crackling hissing sound, which reminded me strongly of the ambient noise inside a large active electrical power generating station. As the object came closer, its overall shape, more closely now resembling a sports discus, could be clearly detailed, and its general outer surface could be seen to have a satiny shimmering mother-of-pearl sort of finish. As it rocked laterally back and forth, I was reminded of the opposing segments of reflected light that rotate back and forth that one sees when a shiny aluminum pan lid is tilted back and forth to reflect ambient light. This object came very close, quickly passing directly overhead, and the first impressions of color and surface finish were strongly reinforced. The exterior was almost entirely featureless, except that the periphery was edged by a band of a darker color with indistinct markings of some sort, which kept changing in appearance, but from which emanated strange bluish flickering of points of light, very much like the little blue plumes of flame from a gas ring on a cooking stove, but turned upside down. I also got the impression that either the main body or the peripheral rim was rotating. It also seemed quite clear that the sibilant cracking hissing sound came from this circle of flicking light. There appeared to be a definite connection, and most remarkably there was a concurrent smell of ozone that normally is associated with heavy electrical discharges. And again, like the odor inside a power station. As the object was coming closer and then went overhead, I tried to estimate its size, altitude, and speed, but with the absence of any readily identifiable feature, it was difficult to gauge these factors with any confidence. Taking the angle of the object above the horizon when I first observed it as a datum from which to get some idea of its height and distance away, and then connecting this with the impression as it passed overhead, I guessed that its height above the ground when first seen was probably between 700 and 1.000 feet, and since it certainly seemed to maintain altitude throughout the period of my observation, I guessed that it would have traveled until it went out of sight. It must have been traveling very fast, perhaps as high as 500 to 900 knots. But there was no sense whatsoever of air disturbance due to its passing. As the saucer disappeared into the distance, I recalled hearing screaming and shouting from the flight dispatcher's office nearby. A dispatcher came running towards him in a hysterical state, shouting, "Stan, did you see that awful thing?" She was comforted by another airman but was extremely upset, almost irrational.
After the event, Hubbard was interrogated by scientific intelligence officers from London. He was advised not to discuss this matter with anyone, including his boss. The witness, who is a qualified Air Force pilot, gave an extremely detailed statement. What was this mysterious ship? Only 3 options here. 1. The witness is lying. Nothing to be gained about lying about this in 1950. 2. An unknown secret military craft that is many decades ahead of its time. We still do not know about it. Or 3. A genuine, extraordinary aircraft of unknown origin.